Hi, and welcome back to Best Practices. Today we're going to talk about 4th grade represent and interpret data, and I'm Bailey. I want you to take a minute and look at the image on your screen. So graphs are a great way to represent data, but if you're unable to read the graph and you don't understand what it means, the data is kind of useless. So today we're really going to talk about the expectations that the best benchmarks have for 4th graders with representing and interpreting data. What does student learning look like in the classroom? During this unit, students will be given lots of chances to gather data and use these data points to create line plots. Once these line plots are created, students should be asked a variety of questions about the line plot to ensure that they understand what each part represents. As students build their understanding, they'll move into organizing their data using stem and leaf plots. Again, students should be asked a lot of questions during this time to make sure they know what each part of that stem and leaf plot represent, as well as how the line plot and the stem and leaf plot connect to each other. Students will also have a lot of chances to organize data sets to help them interpret the data and determine the mode, the median, and the range. The MDRs throughout this unit are 1, 4, 5, and 7. What does student learning sound like in the classroom? If we were to ask students this first question, do the numbers on the leaf side of the plot always represent the same amount, why or why not? We would want students to explain that the stem and leaf plot is a way to organize data based on place value, and the leaf could represent a whole number, or it could also represent parts of a whole number like a fraction or a decimal. We could also ask students, why is it helpful to represent data this way? Students should understand that the way we're trying to represent data is a way to organize it and help them notice the patterns. If we ask students, how can representing your set of data in order from least to greatest help in determining the mode, the median, and the range, we'd want students to explain that if we put the data points in order from least to greatest, we can quickly see the numbers or the data points that are repeated, the mode, or we can quickly figure out what the middle number is, the median. And then the last part is the range, and putting them in order from least to greatest helps us figure out which numbers we need to subtract. If we ask students, why do you think finding a range of data set is important, we need them to understand that this helps them determine if there is a big or small difference between the lowest and highest data point that they have. As always with math, we want to have really precise vocabulary throughout our instruction, and then we want to make sure that students are using this throughout their discussion. So some of the vocabulary for this unit include table, line plot, median, mode, range, and stem and leaf plot. How will students demonstrate their knowledge? Throughout this unit, students will be asked to collect and generate data, and they'll use these data points to create line plots and stem and leaf plots. As well as creating the stem and leaf plots and the line plots, students will be expected to read already created graphs and use those graphs to interpret the data. Once students understand the different ways we can organize and represent data, they'll start to interpret it by finding the mode, the median, and the range of various data sets. Games are another way that students can demonstrate their knowledge, and in this game from STEMscopes, students are asked to match the data table with the line plots, and then are asked to represent the data in a different way, like a stem and leaf plot. The MTRs that we're going to see throughout this unit are 1, 2, 5, and 7. Here are some questions we can ask to gauge student understanding. What does the STEM section on the stem and leaf plot represent? We want students to understand that the stem and leaf plot organizes the numbers of the data set by place value, and that the stem represents the greatest digit of each number in the data. Using a given line plot about ribbon length, what is the difference between the longest ribbon and the shortest ribbon? Students should be able to identify the shortest and longest length of ribbon based on the x's of the line plot and subtract the values to find the difference. A lot of times students assume that the endpoints of the line plot are the shortest and longest distance, and that's not always true. The last question is explain the difference between the median and the mode. We want students to understand the difference and be able to describe what these mean. The median is the middle value of a data set, and the mode is the most occurring data value. This is a skill that could be practiced at home. So this activity is called a booked line plot. You're going to find 11 books, magazines, or different objects around the house. Your next step is to measure these objects to the nearest half inch and then use these data points to create a line plot. Once the line plot is created, we want to ask the student questions like which length measurement is the most frequent, or what is the range of the different lengths. For this activity, the MTRs are 1, 5, and 7. Thanks so much for joining us today to talk about 4th grade represent and interpret data. We'll see you again for our next video.